My own son stole $8,500 from my pension account to buy his father-in-law a Mediterranean cruise, then handed me a $5 scratch-off ticket and said, "Half the winnings are mine." That ticket just won me $15 million, and I'm about to teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Let me back up and tell you how this whole mess started. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm 67 years old, and I spent 40 years building things with these hands. Concrete foundations, steel frameworks, houses that'll stand for generations. I raised my son Michael after his mother, Patricia, died in a car accident when he was 12. Worked double shifts, overtime, weekends, whatever it took to give that boy everything he needed. The trouble began 3 weeks ago when I was going through my monthly pension statement. Same routine I'd followed for the past 3 years since retiring from Martinez Construction. Coffee in my favorite mug, laptop open on my kitchen table, checking every line item like I was reading blueprints. Everything looked normal until I hit a charge that made my blood run cold. Richardson Travel Services, $8,543. I stared at that line for a solid minute, thinking maybe I'd misread it. But there it was, bold as brass, dated 1 week ago. Thursday, when I'd been home watching the Rangers game and fixing a leaky kitchen faucet. I'd never been to Richardson Travel Services in my life. That's when it hit me like a load of bricks falling from a scaffold. Michael still had access to my pension account. I'd set it up 2 years back when I had that minor heart episode, just in case something happened to me. Emergency access only, the bank had called it. Seemed smart at the time. My hands were shaking when I called him. The phone rang 4 times before he picked up, and I could hear that fake cheerful voice he used when he was busy with something more important than his old man. "Hey Dad, what's up? I'm showing a house in 20 minutes. Michael, I'm looking at my pension statement. There's a charge for over $8,500 from Richardson Travel Services." Dead silence, then a laugh that sounded forced. "Oh yeah, that. I bought David his Father's Day cruise. He deserves something nice for once." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. David Richardson was Michael's father-in-law, a retired bank executive who treated me like I was something he'd scraped off his golf shoes. The kind of man who'd never worked an honest day in his life, but somehow convinced my son that money was the only measure of a man's worth. "You took $8,500 from my pension without asking?" "I didn't take anything, Dad. I used family money for a family gift." His voice got defensive, like when he was a teenager caught breaking curfew. "You wouldn't have spent it anyway. It's just sitting there." "Michael, that's theft. You stole from me." "It's not stealing when it's family money," he snapped. "David has always been there for us financially. He helped us when we needed it. This is just returning the favor." I gripped the phone so tight, thought it might crack. "I'm your father, Michael. I raised you. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. And David helped us move beyond all that," he interrupted. "He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, to live well. Not like—" He paused, and I could hear the contempt in his silence. "Not like what, son? Not like scratching by on a construction pension, Dad. David understands quality. He understands what it takes to make something of yourself in this world." The line went dead, leaving me sitting in my quiet kitchen with the taste of betrayal bitter in my mouth. This was the boy I'd raised, the kid who used to help me in the garage, who'd fallen asleep in my lap while I read him stories about brave construction workers building cities. I walked around my modest house for hours that day, looking at the family photos on the walls, the furniture I'd bought piece by piece over the years. Everything felt different somehow, like I was seeing it through Michael's eyes for the first time. Not a home built with love and sacrifice, but just the shabby dwelling of an old construction worker who'd never amounted to much. That was Wednesday. By Thursday, I'd made the decision to cut off his access to my account, called the bank, talked to a supervisor, got it done. Michael would learn that actions have consequences, even for spoiled real estate agents who forgot where they came from. Father's Day was Sunday, and that's when this whole lottery business started. The Cedar Hill Country Club wasn't my idea, never had been. Michael insisted we celebrate there because David was a member, because it would be nice for the family to experience something elegant for once. The way he said it made it clear he was embarrassed by my usual suggestion of Murphy's Family Restaurant, where working folks went for Sunday dinner. But I went along with it, 67 years old and still trying to please a son who saw me as nothing more than an embarrassment to his carefully constructed upper-middle-class life. God help me. I had no idea what was coming next. Sunday morning came with that heavy feeling you get when you know something unpleasant is waiting for you. I put on my best clothes, a navy suit I'd bought for Patricia's funeral years back, polished my work boots until they looked respectable, and drove to the Cedar Hill Country Club, feeling like I was heading to my own execution. The place was everything I expected and nothing I belonged to. Manicured lawns that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly pension, a clubhouse that looked like something out of a magazine, and parking lots full of cars that cost more than most people's houses. My 10-year-old pickup truck looked like a rust bucket among all those BMWs and Mercedes. Michael was waiting by the entrance with his wife Patricia and their son Aaron. Patricia looked perfect as always, like she'd stepped out of one of those country club magazines. Aaron was 17 now, tall and lanky, more interested in his phone than the family gatherings. He gave me a quick hug when I walked up, and I could see some of his grandfather in him, the real grandfather, not the pretender waiting inside. "Dad, you made it," Michael said, though his smile looked forced. "David's already got us a table on the terrace. He's excited to see you." That was a lie, and we both knew it. David Richardson tolerated me the way you tolerate a stray dog that keeps showing up in your yard. Necessary, but unpleasant. We walked through the clubhouse, past oil paintings of dead rich people, and display cases full of golf trophies. The other members nodded politely at Michael and Patricia, but their eyes slid over me like I was invisible. I might as well have had construction worker tattooed on my forehead. David was sitting at a prime table on the terrace, overlooking the 18th green. At 69, he still had that corporate bearing that commanded respect without saying a word. Gray hair perfectly styled, clothes that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month, and hands that had never known real work. "Robert," he said, standing to shake my hand. His grip was firm but brief, like he was afraid calluses might be contagious. "Good to see you. How's retirement treating you?" "Can't complain," I said, taking my seat. The chair was fancy wrought iron that looked expensive but wasn't built for comfort. Give me a good wooden chair any day. We ordered lunch, club sandwiches, and iced tea for most of us, though David went with something called pan-seared salmon with quinoa that cost $42. I stuck with the burger, which was probably the cheapest thing on the menu at $18. Even their burgers cost more than a decent meal at Murphy's. The conversation flowed around me like I was a rock in a stream. Golf scores, real estate markets, vacation plans to places I'd never heard of. Aaron tried to include me a few times, asking about my classic car projects, but Michael would steer the conversation back to topics that reminded everyone of the social gap between his worlds. "Speaking of vacations," Patricia said, her voice taking on that excited tone women get when they're about to reveal a surprise, "we have Father's Day gifts to exchange." My stomach tightened. I'd brought David a bottle of good bourbon. Nothing fancy, just a solid whiskey that any man could appreciate. For Michael, I'd picked up a new level from the hardware store, since he'd mentioned needing one for some home projects. Practical gifts from a practical man. "Oh, good," Michael said, jumping up from his chair. "Let me get the gifts from the car." He disappeared for a few minutes while we sat in awkward silence. David checked his phone, Patricia admired her manicure, and Aaron kept glancing between his phone and the golf course like he'd rather be anywhere else. When Michael came back, he was carrying 2 packages. One was obviously expensive, wrapped in thick paper with a ribbon that probably cost more than my Father's Day. Budget. The other was a small plastic bag from a convenience store. "David first," Michael announced, setting the expensive package in front of his father-in-law. "This is for everything you've done for our family." David opened it with the careful precision of a surgeon, revealing an elegant box containing what looked like cruise tickets. His eyes lit up as he examined them. "Mediterranean cruise," Michael explained, his voice full of pride. 2 weeks, first-class accommodations, private balcony suite. "You and Mom deserve the best." "Michael, this is incredible," David said, examining the tickets like they were precious artifacts. "This must have cost a fortune." $8,500, Patricia said proudly. "Nothing's too good for you, Dad." My blood ran cold. That was my pension money they were talking about. Money stolen from my account to buy this man a luxury cruise while I sat here like some kind of charity case. "Now, Dad," Michael said, turning to me with that same forced smile. He pulled the convenience store bag from behind his chair and tossed it across the table like he was feeding scraps to a dog. Inside was a single scratch-off lottery ticket, $5 worth of cardboard and false hope. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," he said, his voice carrying just enough mockery to make it sting. "I figured you'd appreciate something with a little excitement. And hey, if you win big, remember, half of it's mine since I bought it." The table went quiet except for the sound of David examining his cruise tickets and the distant sound of golf carts on the course. Everyone was watching me, waiting to see how the old construction worker would react to his pathetic gift. I picked up that scratch-off ticket and looked at it. $5, the same amount I used to give Michael for comic books when he was Aaron's age. "Thanks, son," I said quietly, very thoughtful. But inside, something was burning that would change everything. The ride home from the country club felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept that scratch-off ticket in my shirt pocket, feeling it crinkle every time I shifted in my seat. $5. The price of a decent cup of coffee, and apparently what my 40 years of fatherhood were worth to my son. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for a while, looking at my modest ranch house. Nothing fancy, but it was paid for, built solid, and had been home for 15 years. Patricia had picked it out before she died, said it had good bones and a nice yard for Michael to play in when he visited. Back then, he actually enjoyed visiting. The house felt too quiet when I walked in. Sunday evenings always did that to you, made you aware of how alone you really were. I loosened my tie, hung up my suit jacket, and went to the kitchen to make some coffee. Real coffee, not that fancy stuff they served at the country club for $4 a cup. While the coffee brewed, I pulled out that scratch-off ticket and looked at it again. Texas Millions, it said across the top, with pictures of WAMS, dollar signs, and gold coins. The kind of gaudy design that was supposed to make you feel lucky, just holding it. All you had to do was match 3 numbers to win prizes ranging from $5 to $1,000. Simple enough for an old construction worker to figure out. I found a quarter in my pocket, probably worth more to me right now than my relationship with my son, and sat down at my kitchen table. Might as well see what my stolen pension money had bought me. The first square revealed a 7. Nothing special there. Second square, another 7. Third square, 7 again. 3 sevens. I looked at the prize chart on the back of the ticket. 3 sevens meant I had to read it twice to make sure I wasn't seeing things. $15,000. $15 million. I set the ticket down on my kitchen table and stared at it like it might disappear if I looked away. This had to be a mistake. Construction workers from Cedar Hill didn't win $15 million on scratch-off tickets. We bought lottery tickets and lost. That was the natural order of things. But there it was, plain as day. 3 sevens in a row, and according to the fine print on the back, that meant I'd just won the grand prize. $15 million before taxes. My hands were shaking as I picked up the ticket again. The numbers hadn't changed. Still 3 sevens, still worth more money than I could spend in several lifetimes. More money than Michael's precious David Richardson probably had in all his investment accounts combined. I called the number printed on the back of the ticket, following the automated prompts like I was navigating a complicated electrical diagram. Press 1 to check winning numbers. Press 2 to report a winning ticket. Press 3 for, I press 2. Please hold while we connect you to a customer service representative. Your call is important to us. The hold music was some kind of elevator jazz that made my nerves even worse. I walked circles around my kitchen, still holding the ticket, wondering if this was some kind of cruel joke the universe was playing on me. Texas Lottery Customer Service, this is Jennifer. How can I help you today? I think I might have a winning ticket, I said, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. Wonderful. Can you please read me the serial number on your ticket? I read off the long string of numbers printed at the bottom, stumbling over them twice because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. And what prize amount are you claiming, sir? $15 million. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, sir, can you please repeat that amount? 15 million. 3 sevens in a row on a Texas Millions ticket. I need to transfer you to our verification department. Please hold. More elevator music. I walked to my kitchen window and looked out at my neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson was watering her roses next door, completely unaware that her neighbor had just become one of the richest men in Texas. Mr. Chen was washing his car in his driveway, probably thinking, about Monday morning and another week of honest work. Mr. Martinez, This is David from Verification. Congratulations, sir. You do indeed have a winning ticket worth $15 million. You'll need to come to our Dallas office for the claim process. Can you be here tomorrow morning? Tomorrow? Yes, sir. We're open at 8 a.m. Bring valid identification and the winning ticket. And Mr. Martinez, don't sign the back of that ticket until you're here with us. Keep it in a safe place. I hung up and sat down hard in my kitchen chair. $15 million. The number kept bouncing around in my head like a pinball. That was more than most people made in their entire working lives. More than I'd made in 40 years of construction work, overtime included. And it all came from a $5 scratch-off ticket that my son had bought with money he'd stolen from my pension account. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. Almost. I thought about Michael's words at the country club. If you win big, remember, half of it's mine since I bought it. Half of $15 million was $7.5 million, Staris. More money than he'd see in a lifetime of selling real estate in Cedar Hill. Money that could buy him everything David Richardson represented. Respect, status, membership, in a world that valued bank accounts over character. But as I sat there in my quiet kitchen, holding a ticket worth more than some small country's annual budgets, I realized something that would have shocked my son. I didn't want to share it with him. Not $1, not after what he'd done to me, what he'd said about me, how he'd made me feel like a worthless old man whose only value is what money he might leave behind. For the first time in years, I smiled a real smile. Tomorrow would be interesting. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that only comes after a sleepless night. I'd spent most of Sunday evening and early Monday morning pacing around my house, alternating between staring at that scratch-off ticket and wondering if I was losing my mind. By 6 a.m., I'd showered, shaved, put on my best clothes, and was ready to drive to Dallas. The Texas Lottery Commission headquarters was downtown, in one of those glass towers that made me feel like an ant looking up at giants. I'd worked construction on buildings like this one, knew what went into making them stand tall and proud. But walking into one as a millionaire instead of a worker felt surreal. The lobby was all marble and polished steel, with security guards who looked like they took their jobs seriously. I approached the information desk, still clutching that lottery ticket like it might evaporate. "I'm here to claim a winning ticket," I told the receptionist, a young woman who probably made more in a month than I'd made in a week before retirement. "Certainly, sir. Do you have an appointment?" "I called yesterday. Robert Martinez. I think I'm supposed to see someone in the verification." She typed something into her computer, then smiled. "Yes, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Davis is expecting you. 15th floor, elevator bank to your right." The elevator ride felt like ascending to heaven. Or maybe hell. I wasn't sure which yet. Mr. Davis turned out to be a middle-aged man with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who had dealt with shocked lottery winners before. His office overlooked downtown Dallas, with a view that probably cost more than my house. "Mr. Martinez, please have a seat. I understand you have a winning Texas Millions ticket." I handed over the ticket, still warm from being clutched in my palm. He examined it under some kind of magnifying device, then ran it through a scanner that beeped and displayed numbers on a computer screen. "Congratulations, sir. This is indeed a valid winning ticket worth $15 million. After federal and state taxes, you're looking at approximately $9.2 million. $9.2 million. Still more money than I could comprehend. Now, we need to discuss payout options," Mr. Davis continued. "You can take the full amount as an annuity over 30 years, or a lump sum of approximately $7.8 million after taxes." I thought about Michael, about David Richardson, about spending the next 30 years wondering if my son would contest every annual payment. "Lump sum," I said without hesitation. "Excellent choice for someone in your situation. We'll need to process some paperwork, verify your identity, and arrange for the funds transfer. The entire process will take about 48 hours. 48 hours! 2 days between this moment and having nearly $8 million in my bank account. There's one more thing, Mr. Martinez. We offer winners the option of a public ceremony for amounts over $1 million. It's good publicity for the lottery program, and some winners enjoy the recognition." I thought about that for a moment. A public ceremony would mean cameras, newspapers, everyone in Cedar Hill knowing about my good fortune, including Michael. "Yes," I said, I'd like the public ceremony. By the time I left the lottery office, my head was spinning with paperwork, tax forms, and legal documents. But one thing was crystal clear. In 48 hours, I'd be independently wealthy. The drive home gave me time to think. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about showing Michael and his father-in-law that the worthless old construction worker they'd dismissed wasn't quite as helpless as they'd assumed. I was still savoring that thought when I pulled into my driveway and saw Michael's BMW parked on the street. He was sitting on my front porch, looking like he'd been there for a while. "Dad, where have you been?" he asked, standing up as I approached. "I've been calling you all morning. Had some business to take care of in Dallas," I said, walking past him to unlock my front door. "What do you want, Michael?" He followed me inside, his agitation obvious. "Look, I wanted to apologize about yesterday. Maybe I was a little harsh about the whole bank account thing." "A little harsh?" I turned to face him. "You stole $8,500 from my pension. I borrowed it. There's a difference." He was using that same justification tone from our phone call, and I'm here to make it right. "I talked to Patricia, and we've decided to pay you back." "When?" "Well, that's the thing. Business has been slow lately, and with the house payments..." He shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we could work out some kind of payment plan." I almost laughed. Here was my son, offering to pay back money he'd stolen, on a payment plan no less, while having no idea that I was about to become a millionaire. "That's very generous of you, Michael." "There's something else," he said, pulling out his phone. "I've been thinking about that scratch-off ticket from yesterday. Did you ever check it?" My heart started pounding, but I kept my expression neutral. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. I mean, you never know with these things, right? Sometimes people throw away winning tickets without realizing it. He was fishing. Somehow, he'd gotten wind of something. "The ticket's around here somewhere," I said carefully. "Haven't had a chance to scratch it yet." "Well, when you do," he said, his smile looking forced. "Remember our deal, 50-50, right?" "Right," I said, 50-50. But as I watched him leave, already planning his share of money he'd never see, I realized something that would have shocked the man I'd been just 24 hours earlier. I was going to enjoy this. Every single minute. Tuesday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was having my coffee and reading the sports section when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. Through the kitchen window, I saw Patricia getting out of her white Lexus, dressed in one of those expensive outfits that screamed country club wife. She never visited alone. This had to be serious. I opened the door before she could knock. "Patricia, this is a surprise. Robert, we need to talk." Her voice had that tight quality women get when they're trying to control their emotions. "May I come in?" I stepped aside and led her into my living room. She perched on the edge of my sofa like she was afraid of catching something from the furniture. "It's about Michael," she started, then stopped and looked around my modest living room. I could see her taking inventory. The old television, the worn recliner, the family photos in drugstore frames. Everything that proved her husband had come from working-class stock. "What about Michael?" "He's been acting strange since Sunday, obsessed with that scratch-off ticket you got for Father's Day. He keeps asking if you've checked it yet, if you've won anything." She paused, studying my face. "Robert, did you win something?" The question hung in the air like smoke. I could feel her watching me, looking for tells like she was playing poker. "Why would you think that?" "Because Michael spent yesterday making phone calls. To the lottery office, to some of his friends who work in banking. He's convinced you won something and you're hiding it from him." I set down my coffee mug carefully. "And what did his phone calls tell him?" "Nothing concrete. But he found out that someone in Cedar Hill claimed a major prize on Monday morning. The lottery office won't release names until the winner decides to go public. But the timing..." She leaned forward. "Robert, if you won something, anything, you need to honor what Michael said about splitting it. He bought that ticket. With stolen money." Her face flushed. "That's not how we see it. That was family money, and David is family. David Richardson is not my family. He's yours." I stood up, suddenly tired of this conversation. "And that money came from my pension account, without my permission." "You're being petty about this, Robert. Michael made a mistake, yes, but he was trying to do something nice for David. And now, if you really did win something significant, you're talking about keeping it all for yourself?" The irony was perfect. Here was my daughter-in-law, lecturing me about greed while she sat in my living room, trying to stake a claim to money she thought I'd won. "Patricia, I think you should go." She stood up, her composure cracking. Michael is your son, Robert, your only child. Are you really going to let money destroy your relationship with him? I'm not the one who's destroying anything. After she left, I sat in my quiet house and thought about what she'd said. Michael was getting suspicious, making phone calls, probably working himself into a frenzy trying to figure out if his worthless old man had actually won something significant. The phone rang around noon. Michael's number on the caller ID. Dad, I need to ask you something directly. Did you win money on that scratch-off ticket? Why are you so interested, son? Because someone in Cedar Hill won $15 million on Monday, and the timing seems awfully coincidental. His voice was tight with barely controlled excitement. Dad, if you won, this changes everything. For all of us. $15 million. So he'd found out the exact amount somehow. Probably called in favors, used his real estate connections, maybe even bribed someone at the lottery office for information. That's a lot of money, I said carefully. It is. Life-changing money. The kind of money that could set our whole family up for generations. His voice was getting more excited. Dad, think about what we could do. Pay off the house, set up college funds for Aaron, maybe even buy that lake house Patricia's always wanted. Notice how it was all about what we could do, what our family needed, not a word about what the old man who'd actually won the money might want. Michael, if someone did win that kind of money, don't you think they'd have the right to decide what to do with it? Of course, but we had an agreement, half and half, remember? You can't just take back a deal because you got lucky. What if the person who won didn't see it as luck? What if they saw it as justice? Long pause. Dad, what are you saying? I'm saying that sometimes the universe has a way of evening things out. Sometimes a man who's been taken advantage of gets a chance to turn the tables. You did win. His voice was barely a whisper. You won $15 million and you're planning to keep it all. I'm not planning anything yet, Michael. The lottery office said it takes 48 hours to process everything. 48 hours? Dad, when exactly did you claim this ticket? Monday morning. That means... I could hear him calculating. That means tomorrow. Tomorrow you get the money. If I won anything, yes. Dad, please. I know I made mistakes with the bank account thing, but we're family. We stick together. We share good fortune. Like you shared your good fortune when David helped you buy your house? When he paid for Aaron's private school? Did you ever think about sharing any of that with your old man? Another long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, Robert, then we'll see what happens when the whole community knows what kind of man you really are. The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked around my quiet house. Tomorrow was Wednesday. Tomorrow I'd officially become a millionaire, and Michael would probably start his war. I walked to my kitchen window and looked out at the neighborhood I'd called home for 15 years. By tomorrow night, everything would be different. The only question was, how different? Wednesday morning started with my phone buzzing like an angry wasp. 23 missed calls, 37 text messages, and a cascade of social media notifications that made my stomach drop before I was fully awake. I should have seen it coming. Michael had always been good with computers and social media, part of his real estate business. But I hadn't expected him to move this fast, or this ruthlessly. The first Facebook post was time-stamped 2:47 a.m., posted when most decent people were asleep. Urgent, family betrayal. My father, Robert Martinez, won $15 million on a lottery ticket I bought him for Father's Day, and is refusing to honor our agreement to split the winnings. This is the same man who cut off my access to family money after I used $8,500 to buy a gift for my father-in-law. Money that was just sitting in his account unused. Now he's claiming the entire jackpot for himself, forgetting that I purchased the winning ticket. This is what happens when elderly people become obsessed with money at the expense of family loyalty. Please share this so people know what kind of man he really is. The post included a photo of me from last Christmas, looking stern and unfriendly in my holiday sweater. Below it, comments were already piling up, like vultures on roadkill. But Michael hadn't stopped there. His Instagram showed a video of him sitting in his BMW, tears streaming down his face like a grieving widower. I don't usually put family business on social media, but I'm desperate for people to understand what's happening. My own father has stolen my lottery ticket and is claiming the entire $15 million jackpot. I bought that ticket as a Father's Day gift, with the understanding that we'd share any winnings. He's betraying his own son over money. I'm heartbroken. The performance was Oscar-worthy. Voice cracking at just the right moments, tears flowing on cue, the perfect blend of wounded son and innocent victim. David Richardson had joined the campaign with his own LinkedIn post, carrying the weight of professional credibility. Witnessing financial elder abuse is heartbreaking. But reverse elder abuse, where elderly individuals prioritize money over family relationships, damages entire communities. My son-in-law purchased a lottery ticket as a Father's Day gift, with clear verbal agreements about sharing winnings. Robert Martinez now claims exclusive ownership of $15 million, destroying family bonds over greed. This behavior tears apart the fabric of what makes families strong. By 8 a.m., the story had gone viral in our corner of the internet. The Cedar Hill Facebook community group was buzzing with debate. The neighborhood app next door featured heated discussions about the greedy lottery winner on Maple Street. I made the mistake of reading the comments. This is disgusting. How can a father steal from his own son? The old man should be ashamed. Family comes first. I know this family. The son has always been generous and caring. The father has always been weird about money. Team Michael. Nobody should keep $15 million that rightfully belongs to their child. Construction workers don't understand money anyway. He'll probably waste it all. That last comment stung more than I wanted to admit. My landline started ringing at 8:15 a.m., then my cell phone. Numbers I didn't recognize, probably reporters who'd gotten wind of the story. My sister Margaret called around 9 a.m., her voice tight with worry. "Robert, what in God's name is happening? The whole internet is saying you stole Michael's lottery ticket. Please tell me this isn't true." I explained the situation as calmly as I could, but even to my own sister, it sounded complicated. Yes, Michael had bought the ticket. Yes, he'd mentioned sharing winnings. Yes, I had won $15 million. No, I didn't think I owed him anything. But, Robert, Margaret said gently, he did buy the ticket for you, with money he stole from my pension account. Still, maybe you should consider sharing something. $15 million is an awful lot of money for one person. Even my own sister was siding with Michael. The power of social media to shape narrative was terrifying. By noon, I'd received calls from 3 television stations, 2 newspapers, and something called a social media consultant who wanted to help me manage my image crisis. I turned off both phones and sat in my quiet kitchen, surrounded by printouts of Michael's social media posts. Each comment, each share, each expression of support for my betrayed son felt like another nail in the coffin of my reputation. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was about to become one of the richest men in Texas, and I'd never felt more isolated in my life. Around 2 p.m., a knock at my door interrupted my brooding. I looked out to see Mrs. Patterson from next door, holding a casserole dish and wearing an expression of determined kindness. "Robert, I brought you some lunch," she said when I opened the door. "I figured you might not feel like cooking today." "You don't have to do this, Helen." "Yes, I do." She stepped past me into my kitchen and set down the casserole. "I've been your neighbor for 15 years, Robert Martinez. I know what kind of man you are, and I know what kind of man your son turned into. For the first time all day, I felt something other than anger or frustration. The whole neighborhood's talking," she continued. "Some folks believe what they're reading online, but some of us remember when you worked 3 jobs to pay for Michael's college. Some of us remember how you took care of Patricia when she was sick. Some of us know the difference between a good man having bad luck and a spoiled brat throwing a tantrum." She patted my arm with her weathered hand. "You do what you think is right, Robert. Don't let them bully you into anything." After she left, I looked at the clock. 3:47 p.m. In less than 2 hours, I was scheduled to be at the lottery office for the public ceremony. The ceremony where I'd officially become a millionaire in front of television cameras and newspaper reporters. The ceremony where Michael would undoubtedly make his final play for my money. I put on my best suit and checked my appearance in the mirror. Time to show Cedar Hill what this greedy old construction worker was really made of. The Texas Lottery Commission headquarters buzzed with activity when I arrived at 5:30 p.m. Television crews were setting up lights and cameras in the main lobby, transforming the space into something that looked like a movie set. Reporters checked their equipment while photographers tested angles. The whole scene felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold on television. "Mr. Martinez?" A young woman with a clipboard approached me. "I'm Sarah from the lottery's public relations department. Are you ready for your big moment? Ready?" I'd spent 67 years building things with my hands, raising a son who'd grown to despise everything I represented, and working jobs that left me exhausted but proud. Was I ready to become a millionaire in front of television cameras while my own son plotted to destroy my reputation? As ready as I'll ever be. The ceremony setup was impressive. A backdrop featuring the Texas Lottery logo, an oversized check that required 2 people to hold, and enough camera equipment to broadcast a football game. Mr. Davis from the verification department stood nearby with official documents and that patient smile lottery officials probably practiced in the mirror. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah announced to the gathered media, "please welcome Robert Martinez, winner of the $15 million Texas Millions jackpot." Applause echoed through the lobby as camera flashes went off like strobe lights. I walked to the podium, feeling like an actor who'd forgotten his lines. "This is certainly unexpected," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying better than I'd hoped. 40 years in construction taught me that hard work pays off. But this is a different kind of payoff entirely. The questions came fast from the reporters. "How does it feel to win $15 million? What are your plans for the money?" "Any advice for other lottery players?" I answered as honestly as I could, talking about gratitude, responsibility, and the importance of using good fortune to help others. Standard lottery winner responses that would look good in tomorrow's newspapers. Then, through the crowd of media personnel, I saw them. Michael and Patricia pushed through the gathering like they owned the place. Michael wore his best suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed he was about to claim his rightful inheritance. Patricia looked like she was attending a funeral, which, in a way, she was. "Excuse me?" Michael's voice cut through the professional atmosphere like a chainsaw through silence. "I need to stop this ceremony." Security guards moved immediately, but Michael's voice carried over their intervention. "That lottery ticket belongs to me. I purchased it as a Father's Day gift, with the understanding that winnings would be shared." The cameras, which had been focused on me and the ceremonial check, swiveled toward the commotion, like sharks sensing blood in the water. This was exactly the kind of drama that television news lived for. "Sir, you need to step back from the ceremony area," a security guard said firmly. "Everyone here needs to know the truth," Michael shouted, gesticulating wildly as Patricia tried to calm him down. "My father is stealing $15 million that rightfully belongs to both of us." A reporter thrust a microphone toward me. "Mr. Martinez, can you comment on this family dispute?" The lobby went quiet except for the hum of camera equipment and the distant sound of downtown Dallas traffic. Everyone was watching me, reporters, lottery officials, security guards, and my son who stood there with tears of rage streaming down his face. I looked directly at Michael, feeling calmer than I had in months. "The ticket was a Father's Day gift from my son," I said clearly, my voice steady despite the chaos. Whatever his intentions, whatever verbal agreements he thinks existed, it became my property the moment he gave it to me. "But we had a deal!" Michael's voice cracked like a teenager whose lies had been exposed. 50-50. Everyone at that Father's Day dinner heard me say it. I heard a lot of things at that dinner, Michael. I heard you talk about how David Richardson deserved an $8,500 cruise bought with money stolen from my pension account. I heard you dismiss your own father as someone who would never amount to anything. I heard you make it clear that the only value I had was what money I might leave behind. The reporters were scribbling frantically, sensing a story much bigger than a simple lottery win. "What do you plan to do with the money?" another reporter asked. I thought about Michael screaming in the background, about the months of manipulation and betrayal, about the years I'd spent enabling his worst impulses out of misguided paternal love. "I plan to help people who deserve it," I said. "I want to start a scholarship fund for children of construction workers, plumbers, electricians, and other skilled tradespeople. Kids whose parents build America with their hands but can't afford to send them to college." "And your son?" a reporter pressed. "Will he receive any portion of the winnings?" Michael had gone quiet, perhaps finally understanding that his public tantrum was being broadcast to news outlets across Texas. Patricia was pulling at his arm, trying to get him to leave before he made things worse. "My son is a grown man who made his choices," I said. "I've made mine." The ceremony concluded with handshakes and official paperwork, while Michael and Patricia retreated to their BMW in the parking lot. Through the lobby windows, I could see them arguing, their voices loud enough to carry across the pavement. Mr. Davis handed me the final documents. "Congratulations, Mr. Martinez. You're officially a millionaire." I walked out of that building carrying papers that made me one of the wealthiest men in Texas. As I passed Michael's car, I could hear him shouting at Patricia about lawyers and lawsuits and getting what was rightfully his. But for the first time in months, his words couldn't touch me. I was free. The morning after the lottery ceremony brought a different kind of silence to my house. Not the lonely quiet I'd grown accustomed to, but the peaceful calm that comes after a storm has passed. My phone still buzzed occasionally, but the frantic desperation of yesterday had given way to something else entirely. The first sign that things had changed came with the morning news. Channel 8 led with the lottery story, but the angle had shifted completely from Michael's social media narrative. Local construction worker Robert Martinez claimed his $15 million lottery prize yesterday in a ceremony disrupted by his son's demands for half the winnings. Martinez, who worked 40 years in construction, announced plans to establish a scholarship fund for children of blue-collar workers. The news footage showed Michael's meltdown in unflattering detail, his red face, his desperate shouting, Patricia trying to pull him away from the cameras. Then it cut to my calm response about helping working families send their kids to college. The internet had done what the internet does best. It had found a new villain and a new hero, and they weren't who Michael expected them to be. The Cedar Hill Facebook community group was buzzing again, but the tone had completely reversed. Did anyone else see that news footage? The son looked like a spoiled brat having a tantrum. I feel bad for judging Mr. Martinez so quickly. After seeing that video, it's clear who the real problem is. A scholarship fund for construction workers' kids? That's beautiful. Shows what kind of man he really is. The son stole $8,500 from his father's pension to buy someone else a cruise, then demanded half of lottery winnings. Unbelievable. My sister Margaret called around 10 a.m., her voice completely different from yesterday's worried tone. "Robert, I owe you an apology. I saw the news footage this morning. Michael looked like, he looked like a man who'd lost his mind over money. He's been planning this for days, Margaret. The social media campaign, the public confrontation. He thought he could pressure me into giving him millions. What are you going to do now?" For the first time in months, that question didn't fill me with dread. "I'm going to live, Margaret, really live." The scholarship fund announcement had struck a nerve with working families across Texas. By noon, I'd received calls from 3 major newspapers wanting to do feature stories about the construction workers' gift to America. A local television station wanted to film a documentary about blue-collar families and educational opportunity, but the call that meant the most came around 2 p.m. "Grandpa?" Aaron's voice was quiet, uncertain. "It's me, my grandson, 17 years old and caught in the middle of his father's greed and his grandfather's vindication. Aaron, how are you holding up, son?" "I'm okay. I wanted to call because I saw the news. Dad was acting crazy yesterday, wasn't he? Your father was upset. Grandpa, can I ask you something? Did you really win $15 million? I did. And Dad really stole money from your bank account?" I sighed. "He took $8,500 without asking to buy David Richardson a cruise. Then he gave me a $5 lottery ticket and demanded half of any winnings." Long pause. "That's messed up, Grandpa." "Yes, Aaron, it is. I'm sorry. For what Dad did, for what he said about you. You didn't deserve any of it." The boy's words hit me harder than any amount of money could. "Thank you for saying that, son. Can I still see you sometimes? Even if Dad doesn't want me to?" "You're 17, Aaron. In less than a year, you'll be 18 and able to make your own decisions. When that day comes, my door will always be open." After I hung up, I walked around my house with new eyes. The modest furniture, the simple decorations, the family photos. None of it looked shabby anymore. It looked like home. A place built with honest work and honest love, even if that love hadn't always been appreciated. Around 4 p.m., Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door again, this time accompanied by 3 other neighbors, Mr. Rodriguez from across the street, the Hendersons from 2 houses down, and elderly Mrs. Clark, who'd lived in the neighborhood longer than anyone. "We wanted to congratulate you properly," Mrs. Patterson said, holding another casserole dish. "And to tell you how proud we are of what you're doing with that scholarship fund. You didn't have to do this." "Yes, we did," Mr. Rodriguez said. "Some of us remember what it was like trying to send kids to college on working wages. What you're doing, it matters." Mrs. Henderson nodded. "My grandson's a plumber, smart as a whip, but we could never afford to send him to engineering school. Maybe now, with your scholarship fund, kids like him will have a chance." We sat in my living room for an hour, drinking coffee and talking about the neighborhood, about raising families on blue-collar wages, about the dignity of honest work. These people understood something Michael had forgotten, that wealth without character is just numbers in a bank account. After they left, I sat in my kitchen and made a list. Not a list of things to buy or places to travel, but a list of people to help. Construction workers' widows who were struggling with medical bills, skilled tradesmen who'd been injured on the job and couldn't work, kids who had the brains for college but not the bank accounts. For 40 years, I'd built things with my hands, houses, buildings, structures that would outlast me. Now I had the chance to build something different. Opportunities for families like mine, futures for kids whose parents worked with their hands and their hearts. Michael had wanted half of my lottery winnings to buy status and comfort. I was going to use the money to build something that would last generations. The difference between us had never been clearer. 3 months after the lottery ceremony, I stood in the office of Martinez Construction Company, looking out at a fleet of trucks bearing my name. The business I'd bought from my old boss had grown from 8 employees to 22, all of them local workers who understood the value of honest labor and fair wages. The Martinez Foundation had awarded its first scholarships, $25,000 each to 15 children of construction workers, plumbers, electricians, and other skilled tradespeople. Kids whose parents built America with their hands but couldn't afford to send them to college. The applications had been heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. Maria Santos, daughter of a roofer, wanted to study engineering. Tommy Wilson, son of an electrician, dreamed of becoming a teacher. Sarah Mitchell, whose father was a welder, planned to study medicine. Each application reminded me why this mattered more than Michael's BMW payments or Patricia's country club memberships. My phone rarely rang with unknown numbers anymore. The media attention had died down, replaced by more current controversies and fresher scandals. I'd moved to a comfortable house in North Dallas. Nothing flashy, just well-built and honest, with a workshop where I could restore classic cars in my spare time. The '67 Mustang I was working on reminded me of the car I'd owned when Michael was born. Back then, he'd loved sitting in the garage with me, handing me tools and asking endless questions about how engines worked. When had that changed? When had my calloused hands become something to be ashamed of instead of respected? Margaret visited every Sunday now, bringing news from Cedar Hill and updates on people we'd known for years. She always asked about Michael, and I always gave the same answer. He's made his choices. "Have you heard from him at all?" she asked during her most recent visit. "Aaron calls sometimes. Good kid. He'll be 18 in 2 months. What about Michael and Patricia?" I'd heard through the neighborhood grapevine that things weren't going well for them. David Richardson had cut them off financially after the lottery fiasco. Disgusted by what he'd seen at the public ceremony, without his support, they were struggling to maintain their lifestyle. Margaret, I spent 25 years trying to earn Michael's respect and love. I worked overtime, sacrificed my own comfort, enabled his worst impulses, because I thought that's what good fathers did. It took winning $15 million to realize I'd been doing it wrong. How so? Good fathers teach their children to have character. I taught Michael that I'd always bail him out, always be there to fix his mistakes, always put his needs before my own dignity. That's not love, that's enabling. A knock at my door interrupted our conversation. Through the window, I saw a familiar figure that made my heart skip. Aaron, taller than I remembered, wearing a high school Letterman jacket and looking uncertain but determined. "Grandpa, could we talk?" Margaret excused herself with a knowing smile, leaving Aaron and me alone in my living room. He looked around at the comfortable furniture, the family photos that included him at various ages, the evidence of a life built on honest work and honest values. "Nice place," he said. "Dad said you'd probably bought some mansion. Your father has always overestimated the importance of impressing other people." Aaron sat down heavily, like he was carrying weight beyond his years. Grandpa, I wanted you to know that I'll be 18 in 6 weeks, and when I am, I want to have a relationship with you again, a real one. What about your parents? Mom and Dad are getting divorced. The words came out flat, matter of fact. Has been coming for months. Dad blames you for ruining everything, but Mom says it started way before the lottery. She says Dad's been angry about money and status for years. I wasn't surprised. Relationships built on financial dependence rarely survive financial stress. Dad moved out last month. He's living in some apartment in Garland now, selling used cars. Says it's temporary until he figures out how to get his money from you. Aaron, that money was never his. I know that. Everyone knows that except him. Aaron leaned forward. Grandpa, I wanted to ask you about college. I've been accepted to UT for engineering, but without Dad's support. You want to apply for one of the foundation scholarships? No. His voice was firm. Those scholarships are for kids who need them. I want to earn college the same way you earned everything, through honest work. I was hoping maybe you could give me a job at your construction company, summers and weekends. I'll start at the bottom, learn the business, work my way up. Looking at my grandson, I saw something I'd feared was lost forever. The understanding that work has dignity, that earning something makes it more valuable than receiving it as a gift. When can you start? His smile lit up the room. Today? That afternoon, I took Aaron to the construction site where we were building a new elementary school. I introduced him to the crew chiefs, explained that he'd be starting as a general laborer, learning the basics before moving to more skilled work. Grandpa, he said as we watched concrete being poured for the foundation, I want you to know something. What Dad did was wrong, stealing from you, demanding half your winnings, trying to destroy your reputation on social media. All of it was wrong. Your father lost his way, Aaron. It happens to good people sometimes, maybe, but you didn't lose your way. You won $15 million and used it to help people. That says everything about who you really are. As I watched my grandson put on a hard hat and work boots for the first time, I realized something that Michael would never understand. The real prize wasn't the lottery ticket. It was raising someone who understood the difference between earning respect and demanding it. 1 year after the lottery ceremony, I sat in my workshop restoring a 1969 Camaro while Aaron worked beside me, learning the difference between a wrench and a socket set. Outside, the Texas sun was setting over North Dallas, painting the sky the color of honest work and earned satisfaction. The Martinez Foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We'd awarded scholarships to 47 students in our first year, and applications were pouring in from across the state. Blue-collar families who'd never imagined their children could afford college were sending kids to universities, trade schools, and technical programs that would change their lives forever. Grandpa, hand me that torquey wrench, Aaron said, bent over the Camaro's engine with the focused concentration I remembered from his father at that age. The difference was that Aaron appreciated what he was learning instead of being embarrassed by it. At 18, my grandson had earned his place in the construction company through sweat and determination. He worked summers pouring concrete and framing houses, saving money for college while learning skills that would serve him regardless of what career path he chose. UT Austin had accepted him for engineering, and he'd start in the fall, paying his own way with honest work and a small scholarship from the foundation. You know, I said, adjusting the carburetor while Aaron watched, your great-grandfather taught me to work on cars in a garage just like this one. Said a man who understood engines would never be helpless in the world. What about Dad? Did you teach him? It was the question Aaron asked sometimes, usually when we were working together, and the silence grew comfortable enough for difficult conversations. I tried. Your father was more interested in computers and business classes. Said working with his hands was beneath him. Aaron was quiet for a moment, focused on threading a bolt with the precision I'd taught him. His loss. Through my sister Margaret, I heard occasional updates about Michael's life. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Patricia had moved back in with her parents, taking half of what little they had accumulated during their marriage. Michael was still selling used cars in Garland, living in a one-bedroom apartment, and bitter about everything that had happened. He'd tried to sue me twice, once for the lottery money, once for emotional distress. Both lawsuits had been thrown out of court so quickly that his lawyers probably charged him for their time before they stopped laughing. Texas law was clear. Lottery tickets were gifts, and gifts belonged to the recipient. Any word from your father lately? I asked Aaron as we cleaned our tools. He calls sometimes, usually when he's been drinking. Aaron's voice carried the weary tone of someone forced to grow up too quickly. He keeps saying you ruined his life, that everything would have been different if you'd shared the money. What do you tell him? That you didn't ruin anything. He ruined it himself when he stole from your pension account and demanded money that was never his. Aaron looked up from the wrench he was cleaning. Grandpa, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever regret not giving him some of the money, even just to keep the peace? I set down my tools and really considered the question. Did I regret standing up to my son's greed and manipulation? Did I regret choosing dignity over family harmony? Aaron, let me tell you what I learned from winning that lottery. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. Your father showed me that he valued status and wealth more than family loyalty. I showed myself that I valued integrity more than convenience. But he's still your son. Yes, he is. And if he ever decides to apologize genuinely, to acknowledge what he did wrong and make amends for it, my door will be open. But I won't reward bad behavior just because we share DNA. Aaron nodded slowly, understanding something that had taken me 67 years to learn, that enabling someone's worst impulses isn't love, it's cowardice. My phone buzzed with a text message. Mrs. Patterson from the old neighborhood, sending photos of her grandson who'd received one of our scholarships. He was studying to be an electrician, following in his grandfather's footsteps, but with the education to run his own company someday. Look at this. I showed Aaron the photo. Third-generation electrician, but the first one who will have a college degree. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Giving people chances. That's what it's all about. As we locked up the workshop and headed inside for dinner, I thought about the strange journey that had brought me here. A stolen $8,500, a $5 scratch-off ticket, and the decision to choose self-respect over family peace had led to this. A thriving business, a foundation that was changing lives, and a grandson who understood that work had dignity and character mattered more than comfort. Michael was probably sitting in his apartment tonight, bitter about the millions he'd never see, resentful of the father who'd refused to enable his greed. He'd chosen money over relationships, status over character, entitlement over integrity. I'd chosen differently. The lottery ticket was framed in my office now, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable gifts come disguised as insults, and the most necessary lessons come wrapped in pain. If you're reading this, and you're a father wondering if you've raised your children right, remember this. You can't control what they become, but you can control who you are. Character matters more than comfort. Integrity matters more than inheritance. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the natural consequences of their own choices. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm 68 years old. I built things for 40 years, and I won the lottery. But the real prize wasn't the money. It was learning that I'd rather be alone with my dignity than surrounded by people who only loved what I could give them. And that knowledge, friends, is worth more than all the lottery tickets in Texas. Some lessons can't be bought. They can only be earned.